enumerate the achievements we have scored. These are things that happen to us most times, and we look at them passively. We don't give them the deep thought. But for the members who are converged here, I want to take a deep thought and critically look at how far we have come, what effort is being done, and what more can be achieved. Yes, you can say there is a lot to be achieved, but it's also very important that already a step has been taken. It wouldn't be worthwhile to converge all of you in a hall like this morning if there was no result to talk about. It's not in my place to talk about the results that have been achieved through this project, because I know you have a copy of the program, and a line of speakers here this morning will be speaking widely about the achievements that we have scored, and of course lay us the ground for the next steps after this. So for me, as your host today, the Director of Ceremonies, it gives me great pleasure to be with you as we celebrate this key project. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm called Frank Mugawi, and I head communications at the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. I see that already here with us, we have the representative of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, and who is substantially the Director, Gender and Community Development, Madame Juliana Naumo, who you all know because you interact with her almost on a daily basis. A round of applause for Madame Juliana. I recognize here with us already, we have the acting head of cooperation from the European Union delegation to Uganda, Mr. Leonard Didier, who will be joining us in the due course. I know that we should be having the program specialist for social human science and culture at the UNESCO Regional Office for East Africa, Mr. Hugh Ngado Ngata, who will be making, you're here already, you're most welcome, sir. Round of applause there for Mr. Ngata. And we also have Rosie Avoli, Secretary General UNATCOM, here with us. A round of applause for Ms. Rosie. The UN country representative will be is actually represented by Mr. Charles Avakabo. Mr. Charles Avakabo, I hope I got the pronunciation right, very wrong. And the pronunciation? Gachabo. Very sorry, you most welcome Mr. Gachabo, and representing the UN country representative, who we all know as Her Excellency Susan Ngongi, who is not here with us. Good to have you, Mr. Gachabo. Also here with us, we have Mr. Medikagwa from Uganda Communications Commission. Mr. Medikagwa. Yeah, you're most welcome. So a round of applause to Mr. Medikagwa, a key partner in the film industry, and Mr. Daniel Kaziwe, well known as Jajaragadi, here in the capacity of National Cultural Forum Chairperson. You're most welcome. We also have the country director, Salam, Dr. James Isabide. Mr. James Isabide, by show of hand. There he is, you're most welcome, sir. And of course, from CCFU, the director, Barbara Ture, you're most welcome, Barbara. In we also have from NITAU, Julian Reggie. Julian Reggie from NITAU, you're most welcome. And the CEO of UTV, Agro Mugisha. Yes, you would like to learn more about your TV. One of the products that are driving this industry very strongly and the key result of all the interventions that are being done. Also with us, we have Billy Bisanga, Head Client and Digital Marketing. Mr. Billy, we are behind, you're most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall be more guests as they come in or as we move them. And we're going to be joined by the Honorable Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development in a short while. Once the Honorable Minister is here, we shall go through the national anthems. We shall do the national anthem and the East African anthem before we launch into listening to remarks from the guests that have been lined up. We have also lined up so once we're done once we launch into the remarks, we shall be moving pretty fast. We have also lined up a documentary that will be showcasing basically key highlights of the project and what has been achieved before we go to the closure of this event with a symbolic launch of unveiling the 5-year strategic plan for this industry. So for me, this is a great event because it looks back at the achievements of one project and in a way launches us into another one that is the 5-year strategic plan. So things are happening, isn't it? I mean, how many sectors have the opportunity to talk about projects that have been implemented, and at the same event you're talking about launch of a strategic plan for 5 years. Not many people have that benefit. So I thought a round of applause would do. And I want to think that most of you have been partners and have directly been engaged in the implementation of the project that is ending now. And of course, your participation will define how we go to achieve what has been laid down in the 5-year strategic plan. So for now, I'll request for 1 minute as we wind up with our breakfast, and when we return, we shall be going straight into the remarks as laid down in the program and proceed with the agenda. Thank you so much. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's now about time we get started with this. And may I request that we be upstanding for the anthems. We shall start with the Ugandan anthem, then the East African anthem. Let's be upstanding. Thank you. Okay, you're gonna. Uganda, we lay our future in thy hand. United, holy, acting together we all restore. East Africa. tuwezeshe iishi kwa amani, tunatimiza malengo yetu, jumuiya yetu zote tulinde, uwajibike, tuimarike, umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, jumuiya yetu. Thank you so much. Let's have a word of prayer from my volunteer out there. May I ask my colleague Chalim Everest, please lead us in a very quick prayer. Amen. Thank you so much. Take our seats, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, to make the official opening remarks. A round of applause for that.
Good morning to all of you. We'd like to thank God for making us make it today to this visibility event. I am Naumo Juliana Akorio, Director Gender and Community Development ad interim in the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. I'm here to represent Mr. Agre David Chibenge, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. I would like now to recognize Madame Beatrice Campodonico, at the moment standing in for the acting head of corporation, European Union delegation to Uganda. Ms. Beatrice, we are happy to see you. I recognize Mr. Hug Ngandu Ngata, Program Specialist for Social, Human Science and Culture, representing the Director, UNESCO Regional Office for Eastern Africa. I would also like to recognize Ms. Rosie Agoi, the Secretary General, Uganda National Commission for UNESCO in Kampala. I would also like to recognize Mr. Charles Drachebo, who is representing the UN country representative in Uganda. Charles, we recognize you. I would also like to recognize Mr. Euchu Janan, representing the British Council. You are most welcome. I'd like to recognize all the representatives of the diplomatic missions in Kampala, all the representatives of the UN agencies here present, and I would also like to recognize that online we have the international expert to this project, Ms. Yong-Yoon John from Korea. I'd also like to recognize our national expert to this project, Mr. Pole Kamukama. I would like to recognize the chairperson, National Culture Forum, which is a private sector-led institution, provided for in the National Culture Policy, and that is Mr. Daniel Kaziwe, known as Raggedy. Jaja, you're welcome. I would like to recognize the President General, Pearlwood, Ms. Aisha Namatovu. I would also like to recognize all the members of the national team that ensured that all the activities of the project were implemented and the results we are seeing today were delivered. And this national team included Uganda Registration Services Bureau, represented here, Uganda Revenue Authority, we had the Media Council, we had NITAU, we had the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, we had Ministry of Information, Communication, Technology and National Guidance, and then we had Uganda Federation of the Movie Industry. I'd also like to recognize all the stakeholders in Kampala, as well as the 4 regions where the project went out to consult them on the situation of the film industry in the country, and also to get their priorities. And most importantly, I would like to recognize all the participants who are online now, and I believe the beneficiaries of the support of EU, UNESCO, and UNESCO are 12 countries. Some of those countries might be joining us online. I would like to welcome all our guests this morning to this event. We appreciate you and your contribution to the strengthening of the culture and creative industry in this country where the film sector falls. I would like now to take this honor to welcome all of you to this event in which we are witnessing the growth of Uganda's film industry during this technological and digital era, where innovation, especially among the youth and young people, is at its peak. Uganda, under the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, was one of the 12 beneficiary countries for this EU UNESCO Expert Facility Project on the governance of culture in developing countries. The aim of this project was to create tax incentives to support local content development and the professionalization of the local film industry, and this project was launched in 2020, September 24th in Uganda. Allow me to sincerely extend our appreciation to the project funders, especially the European Union, UNESCO Paris, UNESCO Regional Office for Eastern Africa, based in Nairobi, the Uganda National Commission for UNESCO, for the financial and technical support extended to Uganda under the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, and all the stakeholders for your contribution towards this. The Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development has prioritized supporting the growth of the film sector in Uganda. This sector has witnessed a growth that has attracted an expansion of public audiences, especially with the digital platform, and has attracted many people to appreciate its contribution to the economy. I'm happy to report to you that the ministry is now able to collect scientific data about the sector that is relevant to national planning. My ministry is working together with National Information Technology Authority, NITAU, to develop a national culture management information system that will strengthen this data collection. And we believe by archiving this information and registration of the stakeholders in the film industry, which will later on go to the other domains in the sector, we shall be going a long way to inform policy, budgeting, and programming. I therefore appeal to all the stakeholders to ensure that we try to formalize and commercialize our work for the growth and sustainability of the sector. And for that matter, I would like to appreciate most sincerely NITA-U for the support that you've given us. We've worked with NITA-U for 2 years to ensure that we have these statistics, which were initially almost absent. I'd also like to thank MTN Uganda and your TV, as well as the media, for supporting this sector so that we have the local content out there presented. Guests here present, all the pictures you see either on your left, right, or at your back is evidence of the local content which has been able to be put out on television and broadcasted to our stakeholders. And we thank you very much, members of Parliament, for that great initiative. I'm also happy to inform you that the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development recently carried out a nationwide mapping of the sector across all regions and in almost 80% of all the districts, together with Uganda Bureau of Statistics, to provide baseline data to address the critical needs to facilitate evidence-based planning. And I'm happy to tell you that very soon this report will be launched, and all the domains there will indicate to you the status of our sector. I'm also happy that we have the National Intellectual Property Policy 2019, which is aimed at protecting and promoting the enforcement of intellectual property rights, as well as supporting capacity building, information sharing, training, and technical assistance through specific projects that are tailored to specific needs of artists and cultural professionals in the country. I would like to encourage all the stakeholders in the culture sector to take advantage of this intellectual property policy, to be able to appreciate what is provided there, and to be able to work as a team to ensure we implement the interventions that are provided. All the MDAs that have a linkage with this policy should work together to ensure that the artists benefit from the policies, and we implement these policies so that we can be able to see a change in the artists in Uganda. The private sector has been key in this intervention. We know that most of the people in the culture sector fall in that area and the private sector, and we are working together with the National Culture Forum that I told you is a private sector-led institution, and we recall that through the government support last year, the National Culture Forum was able to reach a number of associations to support them in ensuring that they become visible and they structure themselves and provide the content and deliver as a team. So we'd like to thank the forum and all the private sector stakeholders, and especially in the film sector. We are aware that the quality and quantity of our local produced movies and cinemas is still lacking, and there is need for us to ensure we provide quality, comparable, competitive products, both nationally and internationally. And so we need to work together to ensure that we have regional production hubs that can support quality production. The regional production hubs can enable us to benefit from our works, because in there would be high-end quality equipment that can make us get the best and to be able to compete internationally. And I believe, therefore, we need to continue to mobilize for support and resources towards these regional production hubs for film and for all the other domains. As I conclude, I would like to commit the ministry's full support towards implementing the project outcomes and recommendations that we shall get from you today for the sustainability of the film sector in Uganda. And this has a very, very high potential for addressing Uganda's challenges, such as the unemployment problem in this country. I therefore call upon you for collective response to support the culture and creative sector for sustainable development in this country. I would like, therefore, once again to thank the national team for the good work you've done. I would like to thank Palwood and all the film stakeholders in all the regions and those who are listening online for the excellent work we've done. We thank you for the teamwork that has produced these results, and that is the way to go. Most importantly, to thank all the partners that have supported this project. One is the European Union delegation in Uganda. We'd like to thank you very much. Madam Beatrice Campodonica has been key in all the planned interventions, coordination meetings, and we've been challenging one another to ensure we deliver as a team. We'd like to thank UNESCO Paris. Thank you very much for the financial support. We'd like to thank the regional office in Nairobi, most especially Madam Judy Ogana, for the excellent work she has done to ensure we reach today. And we appreciate you, representative of the regional director, UNESCO Regional Office in Nairobi, Mr. Ngata, for coming to be with us in Uganda. Most especially, I would like to thank Nita Yu, MTN Uganda, your TV, the media here present, all the ministries, departments, and agencies, because we went out to you to ask you for your understanding, for your appreciation, for your contribution. And most of these agencies were able to give us their take. The ones I did not mention that we visited were UCC, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, KCCA, Uganda National Forest Authority, Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, Uganda Tourism Board, the Media Council, URSB, and then we had URA. So we visited all of them to show them the outcomes of the regional consultations and see how we can be able to push the agenda of local content development and professionalizing the film sector in Uganda. Most importantly, I would like to thank the staff of the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, staff of the ministry, Hajara Naluvega, Chalimpa. Can you get up and wave? Staff of the ministry, they are still, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, staff of the ministry, for the good work in terms of working with the private sector to ensure we deliver. And then most importantly, we cannot forget the National Commission for UNESCO in Kampala, Madam Rosie Agoyi and her team, Mr. Daniel Kawesi, have been very instrumental. Then the national expert, the international expert, and all the staff of Palwood. With those remarks, I would love to believe that from the discussions that arise today, we shall be able to hear a feedback from my minister when she comes. And I now take this opportunity to officially open this event and wish you well in the deliberations. for God and my country.
Thank you so much, the representative of the Permanent Secretary. Members, I thought she deserved a better round of applause. Feel free to, appreciate the remarks being made. She enumerated a couple of things that have been done, which I thought are worth celebrating as a country and as an industry. And the round of applause was a bit, there, but I guess we are still getting our footing. But feel free to really appreciate all the presentations that will be made here, and especially if you think the achievements that are being done greatly contribute to your efforts and support you. That's very important to appreciate. And I know that we laid down a red carpet for you, so you came in here through a red carpet, so let's be upbeat about what we are celebrating this morning. Without wasting much time, allow me to invite the national experts, my colleague Polika Mukama, to come and do a presentation on the report. A round of applause.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Madam Juliana. Thank you. I do believe, Christine, you're projecting the presentation? Or should I present it from here? It's either way. All right, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Once again, good morning and a very warm welcome to this very last event of this amazing project. It's been 2 years in the making, and there's no better way to conclude it today when we are presenting to you the final results. Like I've already been introduced, my name is Polika Mukama. I'm a film and media consultant, but I'm also the national expert for this project. I'm here to present to you a summarized version of this report, which I believe everybody has. So I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. The presentation itself is a bit long, but I'll try to, cherry pick the slides that I'll be presenting to you. My role as the national expert really was to provide guidance and to ensure the successful implementation of this project. So as such, for the last 2 years, been working closely with the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, UNESCO, European Union, and other project partners to ensure the successful delivery of this project. I would also like to take this moment to recognize my colleague, the international expert, Jion Yoon, whose physical presence we missed here for the entire 2 years because, of course, of the COVID-19 restrictions, but nonetheless who contributed immensely towards the achievement of this project. I know that she's following us online from South Korea, so thank you, Yoon, we appreciate you. Without much ado now, let me go straight to the presentation. Some of these slides, I believe, have already been talked about. Madame Juliana scooped me in her presentation. She has already mentioned this. So, just to really emphasize that this Ugandan project was a part of a bigger project by UNESCO, which is called, it's a 3-year project from 2018 to 2021, the UNESCO Expert Facility Project on the Governance of Culture in Developing Countries. And this was an amazing project which really sought to benefit 12 countries to help them improve or enhance their policy frameworks for the culture and creative industries. So Uganda was one of those 12 countries. And how we got the project is that the Ministry of Gender, through the hard work of Madame Juliana, put in an application. Yes, a round of applause for her, yeah. She's really the one who started this. So EU and UNESCO put out a call for countries which wanted to participate in this project, and Madame Juliana was kind enough to put together a team at the ministry. So they put in the proposal, and luckily we were selected. So this is how we get to be here. It's been implemented by the Ministry of Gender between March 2020 and November 2021. The official date was actually supposed to start much earlier, but then we ended up starting a bit late because of obviously the COVID-19 restrictions. So the project was conducted in 3 phases, which in our own language we call missions, the language of this project, plus the peer-to-peer engagements with South Africa and Kenya. I'll talk a little about the peer-to-peer engagements, but this for me was one of the unique elements of this project. This is where we got to interact with the policymakers in these 2 other countries to get to learn from them in terms of what they are doing best. And indeed, when you read our report, you'll notice that a lot of the lessons that we're able to learn from Kenya and South Africa have been localized, okay? They're part of the measures that we are proposing to government to implement. But I'll speak more about that in the later slides. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's the title of the Ugandan project, creating tax incentive measures to support local content development and the professionalization of the film sector in Uganda. So key things to note there, tax incentive measures, supporting local content development and professionalization of the film sector in Uganda. But really, to put it precisely, this project sought to implement, okay, to develop and implement feasible measures to support the development of the local film sector. Okay, next slide. Okay, so these were the project partners. Some of them have already been recognized, but very quickly, UNESCO, the headquarters in Paris, Nairobi, the regional offices, and then UNESCOFilm here. So UNESCO are the managers of this project, right? They're the ones who have been managing this project, along with the 11 other projects that other countries, the other 11 countries have been implementing. The European Union are the money bags, okay? They're the ones who have been funding this project. So the Brussels, the headquarters in Brussels, and of course Kampala team here has been amazing. Beatrice, thank you so much. Anne-Marie and the ambassador, they've really been helpful. And they've been part and parcel of this project throughout. The government of Uganda, through the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, these were the implementing partners. The 2 project experts, Yoon and myself, civil society organizations. So again, this was one of the most exciting things I think that we did on this project, is that we wanted to involve the civil society, right? A lot of times policies are made, right? Policies are implemented, they're developed and implemented without the input of civil society. And we all know how important civil societies are. Okay, they create checks and balances within government, they hold government to account. So for us, particularly for me when I was brought on board, I had to make it a point to work with civil society organizations. And this is where we had the likes of Pearlwood, Bayimba Culture Foundation, Native Voices, and then the National Culture Forum as well, okay? The MDAs, Madame Juliana already talked about, there's so many MDAs that were consulted. You know, UCC, URSB, I know those are represented here. Ministry of Gender itself, Ministry of Finance, and so many others, okay? It was important to really share with them, okay? Share with these government agencies what we had gathered from the field. Okay? The local government, district leaderships, Madame Juliana already talked about the 4 regional tours that we did. In Gulu, in Bale, in Masaka, and in Kabale. And in all these regional consultation meetings, the district leadership was really part and parcel of our activities. Then the industry Kenya already talked about the engagement, which I will elaborate on in one of the last slides here. Then of course the local industry practitioners. This project belongs to you, okay? I didn't want us to sit back in our air-conditioned offices and start imagining things. So it was very important to really go on the grassroots and involve all the different stakeholders of the industry. And your input, indeed, ultimately informed the measures that we are proposing in this policy document. Okay, next slide, please. Project objectives, very quickly, to identify the key challenges affecting Uganda's emerging film sector, to collate important data to use to guide government's planning for the film sector. Madame Juliana already talked about that point number 2. Really, one of the key challenges that are affecting Uganda's film sector, and what really makes it hard for the government to plan for the sector, is that there's no reliable and up-to-date data that is readily available, okay? I know UBOS has done a bit of mapping, the Ministry of Gender has done a bit of mapping, but when you really look at those mappings, when you look at those reports, they talk about the culture and creative sector as a whole. They don't necessarily focus on the audiovisual sector. So there's really, the reason as to why government has, I think, grappled to support this sector and to put in place proper policies is because they don't even have the data to base upon. You can't plan for a sector which you don't know how many people are involved, what's the economic contribution, what are the key challenges. So really for us, that was one of the key objectives. And indeed, we're able to gather data that I think will be useful to plan for the government, or to plan for the sector moving forward. Number 3, identify and benchmark best practices in film regulation through peer-to-peer learning. We're able to learn a lot from South Africa and Kenya, and some of those policies, we've included them in what we are proposing for the government. To build the capacity of local film industry stakeholders across a range of areas, so we did a lot of trainings. I'll talk about that a bit later, but we did a number of capacity building workshops to really try and enlighten the film industry stakeholders about some of the pertinent issues within their sectors. Things to do with, for example, policy formulation and implementation, things to do with distribution and exhibition, things to do with film marketing. We're able to train filmmakers and other stakeholders in those areas. Then also to foster local and international collaborations within Uganda's film sector, to develop a comprehensive policy framework to guide the development of the local sector. That point number 5 really for me is the gist of this whole project, right? We sought to develop a comprehensive policy framework or a strategic paper which the government, showing clear things. If you read this report, you'll be able to see the things that we've proposed that need to be done in order to support the film sector, okay? And these are based on thorough research, okay? And we believe that indeed, if these things are implemented, if these measures are implemented, we'll see a different film industry moving forward. And then number 6, support outstanding local innovations within the film sector. So this is where the Chibanda Express, for example, was born. Very amazing platform. Very shortly, we'll be seeing the video of what this Chibanda Express is about. But briefly, it's like a Netflix sorts. It's a video on demand platform, okay, for Ugandan films. And I think by now they boast around, ever since they were launched in April 2021, they now have a catalog of over 300 films, which is really, really impressive. Really impressive, yeah? But Powerwood really are the ones who are behind this. I think they will talk more about that also. Then project outcomes, very quickly. This one in blue is the main, in green rather, is the main project output. A strategic policy document with a set of measures aimed at addressing the 4 main challenges affecting Uganda's film sector, okay? And these 4 main challenges that we're able to identify through the nationwide consultations are the funding gap, okay, that there's limited access to funding, the skills gap, that the filmmakers in Uganda lack even the basic of training within their profession, and then limited access to modern filmmaking equipment, and of course the distribution problem. So those are the 4 main challenges that we're able to identify, and the measures that we are proposing are aimed at addressing those 4 main challenges. The other outputs, of course, the launch of Chibanda Express in April 2021. We did capacity building workshops. We identified and benchmarked exemplary film policies from South Africa and Kenya. We reviewed the film industry regulatory framework. We did the mapping of the industry, which Madame Juliana was able to talk about, and through that we were able to gather very important information and data that I think the relevant authorities can be able to capitalize on to develop the sector. Then we established an interministerial coordination mechanism to oversee film industry development. We also developed a national film database, which will also be presented to you today. Next slide. Project activities, these are some of the project activities that we did. Established a national team. I did a preliminary research in order to try and understand the current policy framework of the film sector. And my findings ultimately really shaped how the project moved in terms of the objectives and what we sought to achieve. We did train the national team. We launched the project in September 2020. Some of Thank you. We did consult with MDS and civil society organizations. We did peer-to-peer learning with South Africa and Kenya. Second mission capacity building workshops. We did the third mission capacity building workshops. All these details are within this booklet, so don't worry. And then presentations to government on the draft measures, and then implementation of the adopted measures. Hopefully that's what will be the last point. Key challenges, luckily we managed to overcome all of them, but the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, really set us back. This was initially supposed to be a one-year project, but we ended up doing it in 2 years because of the pause start. And then we also ended up missing the input of some of the key partners. For example, I already talked about the international expert who was supposed to be with us throughout the project, but she wasn't able to travel. So engaging with her remotely was a bit of a challenge. And then also for the peer-to-peer workshops that I talked about with South Africa and Kenya, those were supposed to be physical. So we're supposed to get a team from Uganda to visit these policymakers in South Africa and Kenya, but we couldn't travel because it was during the pandemic. So we ended up engaging with them remotely. But it turned out to be a blessing in disguise because then that allowed us to have really more people. Whereas, for example, only myself and maybe a few other officials from the ministry would have been the one to travel physically. This time around, because we did it online, we opened it up to so many participants. Then lack of up-to-date and reliable data on Uganda's film sector, still a very key challenge. Limited time that was allocated to the project activities. So for example, we thought we needed more time with South Africa. There's really a lot to learn from a country like South Africa. They have some of the best film policies, not just in Africa, but in the world as well. So we would have wanted more time with them. Then the fragmented policy and regulatory system in Uganda. For some of you who are familiar with how the industry is regulated here, is that you have different government agencies, each one playing a tiny role. Okay, you have the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, which is like the mother ministry for the culture and creative industry. Then you have UCC, which regulates only the distribution and exhibition element of film. Then you have the Media Council, which does the classification and censorship, right? Then you have, so this fragmentation, the fact that we don't really have one umbrella body that is in charge of regulating the sector itself is a challenge. So this is why we had to go to all these different government agencies, whereas I think it would have been much better if, for example, we had like maybe a Uganda Film Commission, right? One umbrella body that you walk into and get everything about film addressed. Inadequacies within the civil society, yeah? So we noticed that there are not so many civil society organizations that operate within the space of cultural and creative industries, okay? The few that we're able to engage with have organizational problems. You don't know who is the right person to approach. You don't know who, it's like people speak for themselves, not for the entire group. So those inadequacies, I think, and this is really a piece of advice to the civil society organizations that are here. I think that there's a need to sort of put our houses in order if we're to really perform the duties that we're supposed to be performing. You know, you can't hold government to account if you yourselves are not organized enough. You know, you can't be the voice for the voiceless if you yourselves are not. Thank you. I've already talked about the three missions that we had, or the three phases, okay? And implemented. So for example, the first mission or the first phase, between May and July, I did a preliminary research to try and understand the current state of film regulation in Uganda. And ultimately, the findings of that research informed our project objectives and our outcomes. Also, still under the first mission, we did the regional consultation meetings, okay? And 4 of them were conducted. And the next column, I know you can't see it, but it's the output, what came out of those activities. So, through, one of the main things, or the main thing that came out of the regional consultation meetings is that we are able to identify the 4 main challenges that are affecting the film sector. Of course, so many challenges, people told us. And we went there with an open mind. We are meeting these people in their environments and asking them, what do you really think are the key challenges? You as a filmmaker or as an industry stakeholder, what do you think are the main challenges that you're facing? And they gave us a whole list of challenges, but really, the 4 main ones that came out are the ones that I talked about earlier. Limited access to funding, limited access to modern equipment, the skills gap, and then also limited access to the market, or the distribution exhibition gap. Okay. Then under the second mission, we did consultations with ministries, departments, and agencies. So a total of 9 were consulted with, and what came out was an inter-coordination structure, okay? An inter-coordination or interministerial coordination mechanism. Now, for some of you who have been around for some time, there used to be what they called the coordination working group. It was like a loose coalition of the different government agencies that are in charge of regulating the sector. But it didn't really last for long. It was established in 2013, but it didn't last for long. Again, because of the fragmentation that I talked about. I mean, each agency has its own mandate. UCC has its own mandate. UNESCOFilm has its own mandate. Media Council has its own mandate. So that coalition didn't really hold, okay? But through these consultations, we tried to ignite it, okay? We said, look, what went wrong last time, and can we be able to ignite this coalition? Because in the absence of one umbrella body that is in charge of regulating the industry, you need to have some sort of coordination amongst these government agencies, okay? But what we found is that there's duplication of mandate. Sometimes UCC plays the role of Media Council, sometimes Media Council plays the role of Ministry of Gender, and it really all came down to the fact that there was not so much coordination and communication that was going on between these different government agencies. Able to start in that direction. We are also able to lobby, okay, for the inclusion of a film category in the Innovation Fund. Now, I don't know whether some of you are familiar with this, but there's a fund at the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation called the Innovation Fund, okay? So they fund outstanding projects within a sphere of areas. But when we met the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, they didn't even have an idea that there's a film industry that is existing in Uganda. And we told them, look, this is also an innovation. The film industry is largely about innovations. And they were very gracious, they were very, very welcoming. There and then they added a category. Because we saw a list of the eligible categories: farming, carpentry, technology, apps, etc. There was a whole list of categories, but there was nothing to do with the creative sector. But when we talked to them, they were to add that category within the categories of eligible people to apply for that fund. So when they advertise it, make sure to be on the lookout for it. Then, so in the second mission, third mission, we did capacity building workshops, key implementation. The main description, or what it was about really, was the implementation aspects within the draft measures were discussed, including the role of civil society, and the outcome was creation of awareness around key issues in public policy design and implementation. Also still under the third mission, we did the final report, which we're presenting to you today, as well as some advocacy workshops. So a series of media events, panel discussions, and to highlight the project's success were conducted. This is one of them. And then the outcome should be really to generate positive press and the buy-in of the different partners. Because with policy, sometimes it's about lobbying, right? For people who work with government know that. With policy, sometimes it's about lobbying. It doesn't matter how wonderful the policy document that you come up with, the measures that you're proposing are, if you don't really have the buy-in of certain individuals and certain offices, sometimes these things are shelved. It's just how it's the reality of government, okay? So we hope that with an event like this, with the people that we've invited, we can go back and really start the conversation to make sure that everything that we are proposing in here is actually implemented. Because look, if these measures are not implemented, all our efforts will have gone to vain. And this is for me really a humble request. The minister is coming, Madam Juliana is here, people from UCC, from URSB, please take some time and see these measures that are being proposed and see to it that at least they are implemented. It may be hard to implement all of them at the same time, but you can do it in a phased manner. Because this is research. This is 3 years of really hard work and research, and I have no doubts that, if these measures are indeed implemented, we'll see a different sector. Okay? Next time. Okay, so the peer-to-peer outcomes, I already talked about the peer-to-peer. So the peer-to-peer is an approach of solving policy problems where countries in the global south or developing countries, to be less diplomatic, developing countries learn from each other. Okay? Now, it's an approach that has been championed by UNESCO, and I think it's very, very amazing. So instead of, for example, getting experts from Europe, and governments spend a lot of money doing that, hiring experts from Europe, going for these studies in Europe, in America, UNESCO says, look, you can learn from each other because of our shared identity as developing countries, as countries in the global south, yeah? Our shared identity, we're almost at the same level of development, so why not learn from each other? So this is what peer-to-peer learning really is about. That what Kenya has, Uganda may not have. What South Africa has, Uganda may not have. And that once you meet together, you can be able to share experiences and share knowledge as well. I thought for me this was the highlight perhaps for me of this project. And so successful was the peer-to-peer engagement. Again, amongst all the 12 countries that were implementing the project, that UNESCO organized a workshop in March in Swakopmund in Namibia to really try and reflect on the successes of the peer-to-peer engagement. I represented Uganda in that workshop, and the toolkit was developed. So for whoever really, and peer-to-peer extends beyond governments. It doesn't only have to be intergovernment exchanges. It could be within civil societies, it could also be within individuals. Filmmakers in Uganda can meet with filmmakers in Kenya and share experiences. So a toolkit was developed, which is like sort of guideline of how to successfully implement a peer-to-peer activity. But back to our project, we did peer-to-peer with South Africa and Kenya, and we met with these countries. So for example, in South Africa, those were the dates. Then the participants, we have the National Film and Video Foundation, which is really like the umbrella body, site body for film development in South Africa. We have the Film Publications Board and etc. Those were the participants from South Africa. So we are looking out for key things, okay? Looking out for key specific things that are discussing with each country. For South Africa, they've got a robust funding model. They've got one of the most exemplary film funding models, which extends all the way to the provinces. In South Africa, like 90% of the films that are made are actually made with public money. So it's very easy to get your film funded in South Africa. And we thought we could be able to replicate that here in Uganda. So to them about, how does their funding model work, what things they look out for, and it was really amazing to be able to learn. Okay, so for example, we found out that their fund, of course, because of the history that South Africa has with apartheid and inequality, they have a deliberate, okay, within that fund, they made it deliberate to promote black female filmmakers, okay, women of color. Right? Women of color who are filmmakers, there's a special fund for them. And that's a deliberate effort to promote diversity. So we don't have that racial background in Uganda, but this is also a very diverse and an equal country. Okay? So even in the posing to highlight diversity, okay, that there's need to promote diversity within that fund. So for example, women, there has to be some sort of affirmative action, because once you put an umbrella, once you put a blanket fund that everyone can apply, people have different opportunities. You risk having the same people getting the fund over and over. So there has to be some deliberate effort to promote inclusion and diversity. Okay. Also in South Africa, we talked to them about their tax rebate system. So they have another amazing system which is called the tax rebate, film tax rebate system. And precisely how the tax rebate system works is that if you can prove, this works best for foreign productions. So if you go to South Africa to shoot a movie, if you can prove that you spent a certain amount of money in the country, okay, you get a percentage of that budget returned back to you, either in form of a tax invoice or in form of direct money, okay? So for example, this is why Hollywood films are rushing out South Africa. If you go there, you're Disney, you're shooting a movie there, you spend $10 million US, okay? You stand a chance of, for example, having like $1 million US or $2 million US returned back to you, either in form of a tax invoice, which can be transferred to a local company, or in form of direct cash. And I mean, who wouldn't take that? As a producer, I would take that. You know you're spending money, but at the end of the day, you're sort of getting a percentage back, okay? It's amazing, and I think that that's also one thing that can be implemented here, okay? But also in South Africa, if you're a foreign company, you can't just go and make a film there, okay? You have, for example, they have a quota system. You have to employ a certain number of local talent. You have to have a training element within your project, such that once you leave, the people that you worked with can be able to pick up the mantle and train others. Okay, so we need to have that sort of arrangement here in Uganda. Okay, not a Hollywood production company coming here because they've paid the taxes and they just come and use our scenery as a backdrop and leave us, right? Those are some of the things. Also, how to develop a strong domestic market. South Africa has a very strong domestic market. Their films do fairly well at box office, almost to the same level as Hollywood, which we don't have here in Uganda. Hollywood still largely dominates our cinemas here. So we're wondering how are they able to do that? And some of the outcomes we're able to get are those ones in the last column, okay? The need to have a national film fund. And I think on this note, I need to really appreciate UCC for the launch of the Content Development Support Program, yeah? Yeah. I'm one of the first beneficiaries, so, you know, I can speak to that. It's really amazing. Without the fund, personally, I would never have been able to get my film made, okay? You know, so it's making a difference. It's making a difference, but we need more, all right? We need more of that fund. We need more of that fund. All the 4 projects, for example, were selected, and it could have been better if there were 8, and if they were receiving much more money than were actually given, okay? So there's a need to really, there's not a single film industry in the world that has been able to develop without public funding. There's not really a single, okay? And direct public funding. Okay, so there's a need to build on what UCC has started to enhance that fund. Kenya, this is the team that we met from Kenya, the Kenya Film Commission, which is really like the umbrella body for film governance in Kenya. The things that we're talking to them about in Kenya is some of the things that are unique about their industries. For example, the Kenya Film Commission, okay, which is like one foremost body. Is doing amazing work in terms of training, in terms of funding, in terms of distribution. So we're trying to understand how are they able to do their work. Kenya also has a fairly strong public funding for the sector, and they also have very strong civil society organizations that are operating within the film sector. That's why you hear the likes of One Fine Day. I think some of you guys could have trained at One Fine Day workshop. Really strong training initiative in Kenya. And they work hand in hand with the government. So we're trying to understand those aspects about their industry. The things that we're able to borrow from them and to also include in our policy framework is the need for coordinated film regulation in Uganda, the need to invest in film training, and the need for co-production treaties between the 2 countries, okay, Uganda and Kenya. Next slide. Has it frozen? Okay, so the proposed measures, I know I'm running out of time. I won't go through all of them. If anything, they're in this booklet, but I'll just pick out one. So the first column has the issues or the problems that we're able to identify. Okay, limited access to funding, limited market for Ugandan films, the inadequate skills, and also limited access to modern filmmaking equipment. Second column has the measure that we are proposing. So for example, in order to address the limited access to funding, we are proposing the establishment of a national film grant, okay? Now, what would be the projected outcomes of that national film grant? Would have increased local film production, would have improved quality of local film productions, would also have increased film tax base. Because then you would have more people making films, therefore there would be more avenues for the government to collect revenue. What would be the performance indicators, or what would we base upon to actually see these outcomes? In terms of the increased film production, we base upon, for example, the number of films that are produced in Uganda per year. Okay? In terms of improved quality of local productions, how would we be able to tell that indeed the quality has improved? Would, for example, base on the number of Ugandan films that are winning local and international awards. How about in terms of the increased tax base? How would we actually be able to know that the tax base has increased as a result of providing a film grant? We'd look at the amount of revenue collected by government from the industry per year. So the same really applies to all these different measures. You have an issue, you have a measure that we are proposing, you see the projected outcomes, and then finally, how you would be able to tell that that measure is having an impact. Really simple, precise, and straight to the point. Okay? Final slide. I believe that's it. No? Okay, so why anyway? Why should we care? Why is this project important? So first and foremost is that there's lack of up-to-date and reliable data, which is the biggest hindrance in understanding the film's contribution to Uganda's economy. However, okay, there have been a few indicators, okay? There are a few things that we can refer to actually understand the potential that this industry has. Number one, for example, the services sector. This is according to a UBOS report in 2017. They said that the services sector, where the culture and creative industries belong, accounted for 46% of the national GDP, okay? Whereas agriculture, which is the leading sector in Uganda, accounted for that much in the same year. So which means CCIs, or culture and creative industries, contributed about 3%, okay? Not so much, but that's a fairly impressive number. And amongst the CCIs, or amongst the culture and creative industries, or the different domains that Madame Juliana talked about, film really now is number one, okay? Film is number one, okay? Film is number one in Uganda, okay? It used to be the publishing industry, that one has gone down. Film now really has taken over as the main domain within the cultural and creative sector. So which means film has got to be contributing a big chunk of that 3%. Okay? That really shows you the potential that it has, and it's largely informal. It's largely informal, but it's still able to contribute that much to the GDP. Also, if properly, again according to the same report, UBOS noted that if the film industry is properly supported, or the culture and creative industry, they have the potential to double their contribution over the next few years. Okay? By almost up to 70%. So which means if things like these are implemented, what we are proposing, in the next 5 years, we may likely see the contribution of culture and creative industries shooting maybe up to like 15%, okay? Like the case in Nigeria and other countries. Also, according to a 2014 UBOS report, that number of people, out of which 65% are youth, are employed within the cultural and creative sector. So what that really implies is that, to put that into context, is that you have more youth employed in the culture and creative sector than in any other industry. And again, when we speak of the culture and creative sector, I talked about film being number one. So this is an industry that has the potential to solve the perennial youth unemployment problem in this country, if it's properly supported. Then, finally, a report was done by UNESCO in 2018 called Reshaping Culture Policies, and 7 out of 10 graduates from Uganda said they would prefer to work in the cultural and creative industry. So now the government is putting emphasis on oil and technology and innovations and so on and so forth. The reality is that graduates would rather work in the cultural and creative industry, of which film is the number one domain. Okay? But then also, according to the 2063 agenda, African Union agenda, the Africa we want, aspiration number 6 makes it very clear, okay, that the Africa that we would want is where the creativity, energy, innovation of Africa's youth as the driving force behind the continent's political, social, cultural, and economic transformation. So even the African Union really foresees that, okay? That creativity in the coming years is going to be the #1 driver for cultural, economic, and social transformation, okay? Also, and very importantly, okay, as a cultural product, film also contributes immensely to national development in non-quantifiable ways, such as promoting unity, national identity, and cultural heritage, all of which are critical in today's globalized world. Now, one of the key challenges, and this is how government thinks, they think of figures and numbers, at least for the most part, which makes sense, okay? Because government is concerned with revenues, it's concerned with employment, and so on and so forth. So most of the government agencies that we consulted with were asking us for figures, particularly URA. And that's their role, okay? How much do you contribute to the economy? You want for us to do this and this and this for the industry, but how much are you actually contributing to the economy? And we never had those figures, okay? But one of the things that I was telling them is that this is a unique industry. You can't only think of it in terms of the money, especially today, where cultures are being eroded, where identity is being lost. There's really a need to protect identity and culture, right? And cooperation and unity. And you can't put a price to those things. And nothing really achieves those things as film, okay? So, as government, as the different agencies which are here, you know, it's not only about the money that this, of course, it has the potential, I already talked about the numbers, to contribute to economic development, but also there are those intangible things, unity, national identity, culture, heritage, okay, that film really promotes a lot, okay? All right, that's it. Thank you so much.
Yes, Polly, I thought that was a very amazing presentation. Another round of applause to Polly there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have listened keenly and followed Polly's presentation, then you will appreciate that you have started moving as a film industry in Uganda. And I give it up to the team that has done this amazing job. I mean, the findings are grounded on facts, and they speak to the things that have been affecting the film industry in Uganda. And it's good that you also recommend what should be done to put right what is not right. For me, that's a great